To end fat phobia, we need to dismantle Western civilization, says Philly therapist Sonalee Rashatwar. F your logic standards.
You gotta be so good that they can't ignore you, especially the ones that ain't done shit for you. Yeah, you know exactly what I mean. They stab you in the back and then they ask why you're bleeding. I don't trust words, I trust actions. I don't care what you heard, I'm not slacking.
My name's Alan Roberts. This is Everyday Day Fitness. Like, subscribe to the notification bar right over here. Share my videos. Subscribe to my second channel, Alan Roberts, in my opinion course. Link to below, the end, all those places. Thank you very much. So, Sonalee Rashatwar, she goes by the Fat Sex Therapist on Instagram, and I get tagged in just about tagged or sent just about everything this woman says. I believe she's the lady that not too long ago equated like the children shouldn't be forced to work out because they're not of the age of consent. Like, that's so illogically, disqualifyingly stupid. I mean, that's like saying like a child shouldn't have to mow the lawn because it involves physical activity. Can't stand up to do the dishes because physical activity. You know, that's just really, really unintelligent. It's foolish talk. It really is. So when people disqualify themselves that way, I tend not to just ignore them. You know, I will say this. This one caught my attention. It's like she's talking about that Western civilization should be dismantled so fat people can feel better about themselves or eliminate fat phobia. And the statement in general is illogical, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. But my wife and I sat down. If you want to follow my wife's page, it's @DamnSerenity on Instagram. It'll be linked in the description box below. But we sat down and read the article together and just talked through it, and we're going to talk about, I'm going to discuss the points that my wife and I talked about with this, because I found this just be, like, I'm always amazed at the people that get voices. They get put in the news and stuff like that. It's kind of amazing where we're at in society when people take shit like this seriously. So let's get into the article. Sonalee Rashatwar hadn't planned on being a therapist growing up. Her career path, she explained while sitting in the waiting room of the Radical Therapy Center, the practice she co-owns in Western Philadelphia, just kind of happened. Rashatwar, now 31, endured an abusive relationship in her early 20s. After college, she started volunteering for domestic violence response team, an experience that showed her she enjoyed working with others who had lived through traumas. My deepest sympathies to Ms. Rashatwar and to anybody going through that's watching this, that's in a domestic violence situation, that's in a dangerous situation, either physically or mentally. There are going to be links in the description box below that can help you. Check those out. Get help. Seek help as quickly as possible. If you know of anybody that's in a dangerous relationship, have them get those links below if possible. Do whatever you can. So my deepest condolences to Ms. Rashatwar, and to anybody in that situation, please do get help. The article goes on, quote, "All of my work is to better understand what I've experienced," end quote, said Rashatwar, who graduated from Temple University in 2011. Quote, "It's almost like I'm healing younger versions of myself by trying to find language to describe what happened," end quote. I am going to point out that she just admitted to approaching everything from her own viewpoint, her own personal bias. That is disqualifying to me. That professionally, I cannot see that as a counselor being in any way good. She approaches she's looking at it as healing herself. That is not how counseling, coaching, things like that work. That would be like me and my wife coaching every person that comes to us to lose weight in the same manner that I lost weight, and that cannot be done. Some people have a lot more weight to lose, just like I'm sure some people have a lot more trauma than her. Some people have less trauma, some people have less weight for me to lose. Some people have other issues that I didn't have, or less issues than I have, physically, emotionally, mentally. You cannot approach a situation where you're trying to help a person from the stance of, this is what works for me every time. That is not in any way good for anybody. That, to me, her admitting that she approaches things in that way shows serious bias towards everything. That is breaching logical thought and critical thinking. That is, when you approach things from an already decided angle, then the rest of the thought process is very skewed. especially when it's not factual information, when it's not statistical information. Statistical information is just statistics. When you approach it from an emotional bias, it disqualifies you from rational thought. The article goes on, as the fat positivity movement has gained momentum, so too have debates around how fat folks should lead healthy lives. Rashatwar, though, considers how sizeism is affected by racism, misogyny, classism, homophobia, transphobia, and ableism, and she counsels people against intentional weight loss. That is unbelievable to me. She is not qualified. She is not a medical doctor. That is unbelievably negligent to me. I would argue that if somebody was told by their medical professional, by their doctor, to lose weight or they're going to develop diabetes, and she is telling people on an open forum to never intentionally lose weight, and she tells one of her clients not to intentionally lose weight, and they develop type 2 diabetes, that is her fault. That she could be held liable for that, in my opinion, of course. That is dangerous, dangerous, dangerous talk. If your medical doctor tells you to lose weight, get a second opinion. If 2 doctors tell you to lose weight. I mean, in reality, I understand that people want to feel good about themselves, but to start telling people to not intentionally lose weight, to put that out there on such an open forum, okay, if you have a person that's of a healthy weight and telling them not to intentionally lose weight, that I understand. But to just put that out there, especially speaking as an obese person with a person whose majority audience is obese people, to tell them not to lose weight is negligent. You are going to hurt people when you do that. There's no logic behind this. I understand people want to feel good about themselves, but this is a medical thing. This is like the term obese, even though we're trying to asterisk out the word and make it a swear word, the term obese is a medical term for people that have too much adipose tissue. That it is a medical terminology. When you say morbidly obese, it is a state of life that they're endangering their life due to their weight. To tell people not to intentionally lose weight is simply negligent. She pointed to the work of artist activist Sonalee Rashatwar, who has written that wearing clothes from the boys section growing up, when many items for girls didn't fit, altered how Rashatwar experienced gender. Rashatwar, who noted that people may perceive feminine bodies as more masculine if they're fat, feels similarly about her upbringing. Being big and being the eldest child, she said, made her feel less like a girl growing up. How you look is an aesthetic thing. I talk about it all the time. It should not in any way affect your thought process on wanting to be healthy. It just shouldn't. I understand that there's tons of people that want to be huge bodybuilders, but be real, that's not necessarily healthy. It's not healthy to be 300 pounds shredded to the bone on stage. There are many people that think Tess Holliday is a gorgeous woman. Let's be real, it's not healthy to be 400 pounds as a model. In reality, what you look like is just an aesthetic thing. And people are going to judge that no matter what, especially for women. People are going to judge it no matter what. The same person that says something very, very rude to an obese person about their weight with the intention of hurting their feelings is going to say rude, mean shit no matter what the person looks like. That's just what they do. They take enjoyment from it. In some way, it makes them feel better about themselves. Does it make it right? Abso-fucking-lutely not. But it is just the nature of things. If a person is 400 pounds and somebody calls them a whale or something ridiculously ignorant, and that person loses 150 or 250 pounds and becomes 150 pounds, the rude person is going to find something else to say. What you do is not even give that person power over you and don't acknowledge it. You get healthy for you and not give a fuck about what the mean person says, because frankly, when you give that much power to somebody else, you are stealing yourself away. This woman's entire body of work seems to be based around how people look, not actually how healthy they are. That's my issue right now. In reading this article, in no way does this woman bring up anything like, I understand people need to be mentally healthy. I really do. You know what will make you feel mentally healthy? Not worrying about having your feet cut off from diabetes. I mean, not worrying about getting all the diseases and stuff like that. That's the issue. Because nowhere in the back of an obese person's mind are they not worried about getting sick, because they don't feel good. That's just the truth, people. Like stuff like this, the pandering that this woman is putting towards an audience of people that just want to feel better about themselves, based off of her own personal biases is a dangerous narrative. And it's a dangerous narrative without logic. It's literally F your logic standards, because this has none. The article then goes on to say her perspective, one of a fat South Asian non-binary person, or as I would call person, has gained enhanced notoriety through Instagram, where she often posts Telegram-like advice to the account at the Fat Sex Therapist. Last July, she celebrated 4,000 followers. Today, her follower count approaches 20 times that. Now, as a person that prides themselves on their individuality, I pride myself on being a unique individual. I really, really do. I wonder why there's so many labels, because I'm still just a person. Like, I find it very, very illogical, so F your logic standards. I find it very illogical to place so many different types of labels upon yourself when you are preaching a message of inclusivity, when you are trying to represent a group that you feel is marginalized in some way, then to keep putting different labels upon yourself to further, identify yourself as an individual. It's just a very, very confused message. I really believe that this woman, in my opinion, of course, has found her niche. They talked about how her Instagram following has grown immensely. It makes me wonder, is she more concerned with growing her following versus actually helping people like a therapist should? Because when you take the key phrases that she's using just to make sure that she can identify with all different types of audiences, instead of just trying to get all the audiences to be just one audience, and it be very inclusive of people, that makes me wonder what her motives are in general. She posts advice in colorful blocks of text. Your body is an heirloom. Do you consume porn with bodies like yours? And then explains those concepts in the captions. Rashatwar traces contemporary fat phobia to colonial brutality and how enslaved people were treated. Citing research advocate Caleb Luna, Rashatwar said curing anti-fatness would mean dismantling society's foundation. I love to talk about undoing Western civilization because it's just so romantic to me. Holy shit. That's a lot to unpack in just a little bit. First of all, if you don't consume porn with people of your body type, there's nothing wrong with you. It's fantasy for a fucking reason. And to compare what fat people go through to what slaves went through is just inflammatory rhetoric at best. I mean, that is the most positive thing that can be said about that statement. It can be seen as massively insulting to people that are actually enslaved around the world, because that shit still happens. To compare the life of somebody in America that is morbidly obese, who has had enough access to enough food and enough, sedentary lifestyle, enough access to being able to be sedentary enough to eat enough food and get morbidly obese, unless there's some sort of underlying medical issue. Comparing that to slaves is disgusting to me at best. But I will say this: if you don't want to feel like you are enslaved and you're morbidly obese, lose weight, because the thing that's enslaving you is the weight. I find it so hard to take anything this woman says as serious, because like the whole dismantling Western civilization is romantic to me. It's ignorant. It totally is, because if Western civilization were to somehow fall, people would not be as overweight and obese, because people would be working a hell of a lot fucking harder. Western civilization is why people have gotten so obese and overweight. The convenience of it, the ability to be sedentary in nature instead of having to work for your food, the ability to pull up through a drive-through, expend 1 calorie pressing on a gas pedal, and consume 1,500 calories in drink and food. The convenience of Western civilization is one of the reasons why people are so overweight. So I find it amazing that she in some way thinks that obese people would somehow enjoy the fall of Western civilization, because trust me on this, if anarchy would reign, obese people would have a very hard time. If grocery stores shut down, if prices of food skyrocketed, which is what would happen without Western civilization, obese people would have a very hard time. And that to me, again, there's absolutely no logic behind that statement. That statement, that statement was said for the reason I think she got the reaction she wanted out of it, because there's an article made about that statement. And I believe that she does almost everything for that shit. I believe that she sees that the more inflammatory shit she says, the more popular she's getting, therefore the more money she's making. I don't believe there's actually an investment in actually helping people, because not only does she say conflictory things from one sentence to another thing, she says stuff, I think, just to say shit. The article goes on the effects of fat trauma. Happy to see we have another new phrase, fat trauma. What some folks think is trauma is like the event itself that happened. Like the car accident that I got into is the trauma. But that's the event. What trauma is what gets stuck in my body. And the way that I react when I'm in the car and in the future, and it stops really quickly. That's the trauma response. Quote, and so when we internalize fat phobia and we really personalize a fat traumatic experience, it can impact our sexuality by making it uncomfortable to receive a hug because we feel like the person hugging me probably is so repulsed by touching my body, let's just get the hug over with quickly, end quote. I'm again going to point out how everything this woman says seems to either be for inflammatory purposes or based off her own personal biases. Who says that the person feels that way because they're fat? Maybe there's some sort of other trauma that actually caused them to gain the weight that is the reason why they don't want to be hugged. Like, the assumptions are just ridiculous. Maybe they feel that the person won't like hugging them because the fat sex therapist presented it as there might be an issue with people hugging them because they're overweight. Like, this woman could actually be harming people by her fucking statements, just trying to get popular, in my opinion, of course. I'm always lost at how shit like this gets said on an open forum. It is so important to remember when you're on social media, you're talking to the dumbest person that's going to listen. I mean, I say that all the time. You're talking to the dumbest motherfucker in your audience. But in reality, I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that people might take the words you say and misconstrue them to a great degree. And when you are presenting yourself as a therapist, and then you say people are upset because of hugging you because you're overweight, that plants in overweight people's heads that people don't want to hug them. That in of itself is negligent. The article goes on how self-worth can influence sexual interaction. Quote, when we teach someone to experience shame based on your body, whether it's about race, body size, disability, and we internalize that shame, we internalize the sense of our body having less self-worth than other bodies. Just a few things. One of the things that drives me fucking crazy is when people equate body size, like being overweight or obese, to having a disability, to the struggles that people go through when they have a disability. Although you can be, most people that are obese are developing disabilities because their lack of mobility and all of that. We'll get to that in just a second. But race is something, race, disability, burn victims, stuff like that, you know, the people that body positivity was actually meant for, they can't change that shit, and nor should they. I mean, they should be proud of who they are. If you're an amputee, you went through some struggle, you should be proud that you made it through. Cancer survivor, burn victim, shit. To equate something negative, like where the person, like the race you're born, there's nothing negative about it. It's just the genetics you were born with. That's just fucking how it is, and there is nothing to be ashamed for it. For her to even like connotate it to the negativity that can be seen with being obese, because obese is actually an unhealthy state. There's nothing unhealthy about your race. There is unhealthy connotations with being obese. To equate the two is really ignorant. That's ignorance on a whole other level. Being overweight and obese is unhealthy for you. It is an unhealthy state that you can change about yourself. To equate it to the struggles that other people go through, like earlier she equated it to, you know, slaves and being enslaved. That shit's said for inflammatory purposes, to try to win sympathy for an argument. Nothing more. The reality of it is, if you are overweight or obese, you should love yourself enough to get healthy. Who gives a fuck about what you look like? Get healthy. If you are a 400-pound person, look in the mirror, say I love you, and find a way to get counseling enough that you can fight whatever food addiction you have or whatever you need. Do whatever you need to do to get to a healthy weight so you can live longer. That is acceptance and loving yourself, because in order to be accepted, In order for there to be acceptance, you need to accept yourself first. Ignoring unhealthy things you're doing to your body is not accepting yourself. That is not. That is self-harm. That is not accepting yourself. But yet to equate it to things that like acting like you can't change it, F your logic standards. Later on in the article, she says, when body image abuse comes from a significant other, quote, if we haven't received comprehensive sex education, we don't know what our sexual rights are and what our rights to pleasure are, the kind of treatment we deserve, and oftentimes we tolerate body image abuse from partners. I work with clients who are recovering from an experience with sexual assault, and a partner will say, like, I get you're depressed, but like, it's been a week since you've been in the gym, and if your body changes because of this, I'm not in this. I'm no longer going to be attracted to you. I'm going to dump you. I'm going to leave this relationship. It's pressure to maintain a body size in order to maintain a relationship. No, it is an abusive relationship. If somebody says to you, look into the camera and know this. If somebody says to you, I am not going to love you if you don't look a certain way, that in of itself is not a healthy relationship. Get the fuck out. I'm saying that to you right now because I will tell you this right now. I could go blind and lose all the touch, sensation of my fingers and like that, not even be able to feel my wife's skin, not be able to ever see her again. As long as I can hear her and talk to her, I'm gonna love that woman. That is a real relationship. When somebody pressures you to look a certain way, that is not a healthy relationship, and this therapist should advise them to fucking leave. That is ridiculous to me. When somebody says to you, I love you as long as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, when all sorts of ridiculous stipulations, especially when most of them are based around how you look versus your actions, how are they gonna feel 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, 50 years from now, when looks are no longer a factor? That relationship is not worth fucking staying in. If a person says to you, listen, you're 60 pounds overweight and we're worried about you getting diabetes, let's lose weight together, what can I do to help you to get healthy? That is a loving relationship. When a person says, I don't necessarily like how your ass looks, I might have to leave, show that motherfucker the fucking door, whether it's a male, female, whatever. Show them the fucking door. If they say, I don't like how your hair is, or I don't like how this is, I might have to go, they're already out of the fucking relationship anyway, and this fucking therapist should fucking say that. That is an abusive relationship, in my opinion, and I am not a therapist, but I will tell you this, there's no fucking way I'd put up with that, there's no fucking way my wife would put up with that, and there's no fucking way you should either. Being an Instagram therapist, it's super overwhelming sometimes because so many followers on Instagram. It feels like there's pressure to produce content all the time, and I feel like I need to be putting out something new and super profound. Like no one's ever heard of this concept every day, but I don't do that. That's so overwhelming. A lot of folks will reach out to my DMs and ask really personal questions. Quote, it's also really gratifying. So when I post really, really political and radical content, where I'm talking about like being anti-cop, anti-government, anti-military, folks are like, whoa, I've never heard these ideas before, end quote. Unbelievable. We're gonna wrap it up on this. First of all, she just admitted that she says shit just for inflammatory purposes. So can you believe anything that this woman says? If she just totally admitted, in this article, she has admitted that she runs her profession off of her personal bias. And she just said that she posts stuff just for inflammatory purposes. How can anything she say be trusted? F your logic standards if you think she's a reputable source, because in reality, she has admitted in the article, in direct quotes, that she is biased and inflammatory. And, I understand, trust me, because it's not like I'm not, sometimes a divisive person too, but it's fact. When I say facts, it does not matter if I say it, if a 2-year-old says it, if somebody else says it. When I state facts that can be checked up upon, those are facts. Almost her entire profession is her opinion. There are no facts involved with this shit. So saying it out of bias with the expressly said purpose of being radical or inflammatory, how can you believe anything she fucking says? I mean, how can anything this woman says be taken in any way seriously? Because she has admitted that it can't be. And to say that like when you say something that's anti-cop or anti-government or anti-military or whatever, anti-this, anti-that, you saying that people are like, whoa, I've never heard that before. Anti-military lady, there's been protests about military interventions throughout history of the United States. Anti-cop, where have you been? Where have you been? I mean, it's amazing. Anti-government, my God, every political season they try to get us to hate each other and people hate the government. It is ridiculous that this woman thinks that people live in such a box that these things are somehow new concepts. It's again, she just says that stuff because she is, doing it for inflammatory purposes. So when the fat sex therapist herself admits that she's biased and inflammatory, why pay her any fucking attention at all? That's just my 2 cents in the matter. My name's Alan Roberts. Hit me up on Instagram at Everyday Fitness. Hit me up on Twitter at Everyday Fit. I'm also on Facebook at Every Damn Day Fitness. On the internet at everydamndayfitness.net. F your logic standards. God damn.